Culture Uncut. This is Culture Uncut. This is Culture Uncut. I am your host, Jason Spears, and Colt fans, we've got a lot to talk about.
This is Culture Uncut. I am your host, Jason Spears, and I'm back with another update. It's going to be an interesting show. I'm going to go over the new signings that I haven't spoken about, which is Neville Gallimore that we got from the Rams and Corey Balentine. I've got some numbers on them to break them down a little bit. Then I'm going to go into some guys that we're looking or talking to that could possibly be Colts, and then I'm going to give you the Trey Hendrickson update. Going forward, I just want to say this about Chris Ballard. I have been his harshest critic, or at least one of them. I don't even think that he should be employed currently by the Colts, but I will say this, and listen, I'm an honest guy. When a guy's struggling or doing things I don't agree with, I'm going to call it out. But listen, when somebody does something or shows flexibility when they were proven inflexible before, I'm going to give them credit. And his process through the first 8 years was completely different than what we've seen this year in the free agency market. And I have to say I'm very impressed. Not necessarily. I mean, look, I think he's done a good job so far with the talent that he's brought in. I think it's been strategic. I think it's been smart. I think he's improved the secondary. I think he's improved the special teams. Obviously, losing Fries was a blow, but that's a lot of money to pay a guy that really had one good year and then got injured. So I get that, and I do think that they will find a good replacement for him. Maybe not as good. And you guys know I love Fries, but I think he can be replaced. I don't think anyone is irreplaceable that we've lost. I mean, I think Bordellini played really well when he was given the chance last year, and I think that we will be drafting an interior offensive lineman to start or compete with Concavez, who I think is probably going to play guard. So I understand, and my biggest thing is the process. Like, I know that's an annoying, I think the Sixers had that as like their slogan or whatever, and it's kind of an annoying, antiquated, used too much cliche, but I've never used it with Ballard because he hasn't had a process other than we like our guys, we bring them back, and we suck again, or we're mid again, or whatever. But this is different. Like, he clearly has identified players that he wanted to bring into the fold, and he's attacked aggressively, which is all I ever wanted from him. I wanted him to attack our weaknesses in an aggressive way and get these guys in here. And he's done it. I mean, he got Bynum in here, he got Ward in here. Those are two significant upgrades to our roster, and now he's filling out depth at positions we absolutely need to get better at. I think Herbert is an upgrade to Sermon. I think that Gallimore is a upgrade to Raekwon Davis, and I think that Balentine is an excellent special teams player, and our special teams often sucked last year. I think of Marvin Mims running through our coverage, and I think of the kickoff return in the Giants game. Like, we have to be better on special teams, and he recognizes that. And so while some of these moves aren't the sexiest moves, I understand them. They make sense, and he's being aggressive. So, I didn't like the Daniel Jones move because of the money, but I saw somebody give the Colts a D+ for free agency, and I think that's insane. For me, it's at least a B. I mean, you've gotten a significant upgrade in your secondary with the two guys that you brought in, and we haven't even hit the draft. And usually, that's where Ballard really does work. So I just want to start off by giving credit where credit's due, man. The guy's gone out and done everything I asked. I asked him to go get a legit defensive coordinator. He brings in Anarumo, who I think is going to, I know a lot of people hate on him and cite stats and all that, but you got to have players. He's gone out and he's gotten them players. I'm telling you right now, this defense, if it can stay intact and not suffer catastrophic injuries to key players, is going to be significantly better than it ever was under Gus Bradley. I am confident in that. So then he goes out and he brings back some guys. For depth, he obviously goes out, brings in winning players from other organizations, and look, we need a culture shift. We need leaders. We need guys that have won. Ward has won in San Francisco. Bynum has won in Minnesota. Let's see. Gallimore's won with the Rams. So, they've had playoff success. They know what it takes. And I think that's going to help this locker room. So I just wanted to start off by giving Chris Ballard credit, because I know very few people want to do that. And, look, it is what it is. When he was wrong and I disagreed with his moves, you guys know me. I called him on it. Thought he should have been fired when Reich was fired. But he's still here. And look, all I can do is say he's done a good job. Now, again, all this has to, play out. Everything else has to play out, and then we have to see it on the field. But again, it's the process and the flexibility he's shown that has impressed me. So let me get into the players that we have acquired. So first, I'm going to start with Neville Gallimore. He is, he's 28 years old, 6'2", 307, career 66 games, 18 starts, not great production, 4 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, 10 QB hits, but I will say, having watched him in the playoffs, he stepped his game up and played really well. I hope that is the version we are getting. Just to go over his PFF numbers, and again, these are not, this is not, the end-all, be-all to any player. There's a lot of places I disagree with PFF numbers, but it's just something to kind of give you added information. So overall, he was 47.8, which was 159 out of 219 defensive tackles. His run defense was 47.8, which was 138 out of 219. And his pass rush was, 51.5, which was 197 out of 219. So he's certainly an upgrade over Raekwon Davis. I'm not sure where they're going to play him. He's not as good of a pass rusher as Taven Bryan based on what I've seen, but I do love his athlete. He's a very good athlete for his size, and I do like his age. He's still in his, he's still somewhat in his prime, and I think, matching him with Partridge will be a good match, and I hope that he can get the most out of him. Again, he played big. I think he had a game where he had one. I think it might have been the Eagles game, or maybe it was just overall in the playoffs. He had a sack and a half. He was much more. His presence was felt in the playoffs for the Rams, and I think there's upside here. Again, we're not asking him to start. We're asking him to be a rotational defensive tackle. I'll be interested to see what they do as far as, do they go extra, heavy in one tech and get like a guy from, like the guy from Kentucky, big guy, or the guy from Texas, Collins, or do they go play Gallimore at the one and play smaller? I'll be interested to see what they do there, because he's done both. He's played the one and he's played the 3, so it gives him a little bit of position flex. So I'll be interested to see what they do in the draft. I still think they have to draft a defensive tackle in the draft. I just want to see if it's going to be, a big, bulky, space-eating, block-eating guy like Deion Walker, I think is his name, out of Kentucky, who's enormous. Have has some good film and has some really bad film. He's an upside guy, or if they go with what's the kid's name? I don't want to get his name wrong, but there's a kid that really lit it up at the combine. Darius, I think, is his first name, and you guys know I'm old and whatever. I can't remember names, but there's a lot of good, trench guys in this draft as far as I'm concerned. So I do think they need to add another guy there for depth. We don't have a lot of depth there. We don't really have any outside of Gallimore now. So I think we need to go young and get a guy in here that can make a difference because, again, our guys are getting older, so they're not going to be able to play. You want to keep them fresh, and you don't want to have a huge cavernous drop-off like we did last year, especially at the one tech from Raekwon Davis, from Grover to Raekwon Davis. So, especially when you can't stop the run as a one tech, and you're not good in run defense. So, I would be interested to hear Chris Ballard's thoughts on where he's going to play, if he's going to be kind of like a rotational piece for each spot. But again, I would definitely look at the draft as a place to bring another guy in, a young player to, kind of grow and just, kind of get all the information that he possibly can from these veteran players, because we've got 3 vets now that are in the D-line room, and I think, bringing in a talented young guy will only benefit the roster and the team in the future. So, Gallimore is a guy that I think they're betting on improvement and coaching and fit, athletic ability. Again, not the most impressive numbers, but, you like some of the traits he brings to the table. So that's my thought on that pickup. Then we went and we got Corey Balentine. Again, I'll get into his numbers. He's 28 years old, 5'11", so a little shorter than the normal 6-foot corners that Lou likes, but by 1 inch, it's not a big deal. 196. He's played 69 games in his career, 11 starts. Again, production very limited in those 69 games. 1 INT, 9 passes defended. Last year, he only played 79 snaps at corner. So his PFF grades overall really kind of are not that important because it was such a limited, playing time for him. But 53.5 overall, which is 169 out of 222. Run D, 48.2, which is 190 out of 222. Coverage, 54.6, 160 out of 222. Now, I'm looking at this as more of a super, depth signing, but also a very incredibly important special team signing. I think the signing of Ashton back will solidify the back end of our receiver core, but more importantly, now we have 2 gunners that can get down the field and make plays. You've got Ashton now, and you've got Corey Balentine, who, again, opposite side of the ball, but back end defensive back depth, but super important special teams player. So I do think that, and those main reasons are why I think, especially for Balentine, he was signed, because our special teams coverage needs to be better. And you add a guy like Balentine, he's a very good special teams player. I do think that's the main reason he was signed, but you've got back-end depth now. Because if you look at, to me, the starters, and, this is before the draft, but I really love Jalen Jones' fit in this defense. And I think he's been underrated by a lot of Colt fans. Has he been perfect? No. But I think he's outperformed his draft status, and I think he's been a very solid player. I think he's going into the season. Now, he's got to earn it, but I think going into the season, you're going to see him start opposite of Ward. And I think obviously Ward's going to follow the number 1 guy, and I think obviously that's going to put Jones on the number 2 guy, and then you got Kenny in the slot, nickel. And then you've got Womack, who I like a lot, thought did a really good job. Juju, who this kind of makes me think they're looking to move Juju. Because I don't think he's a great fit in this. He's a cover 3 guy. I'm not sure. He's been injury prone. He's I just don't know where he fits, especially now that they've got Balentine. So that's 6 corners, right? I think they need to add, a safety that can also play nickel. Maybe a guy like, Malachi Starks can do that. Malachi Moore from Alabama can do that. There's safeties in this draft. Mabuka, or God, I'm messing his name up, but I think he can do that. So I think they're still going to look at maybe a corner in the draft to play the nickel, or maybe they just go outside and go. You know what? I want Ravel. Let Ravel and Jones, fight it out, because I really think he's going to fall, and I think that's a guy that would really fit this defense. So back to Balentine, I just think it's a back-end move. Certainly helps our special teams, and I think going forward, I think Chris Ballard saw that the special teams were not up to par. I think they signed Spencer Schrader to push Gay, because Gay was very inconsistent outside of 50 yards, and that's just simply unacceptable. So you're seeing a focus on special teams. Everybody forgets that's a third of the game. It's very important. It cost us a lot. I mean, in a lot of games, being poor in special teams cost us. It maybe not the game, but put us in very precarious positions, and that's, you want your special teams to, make your job easier as an offense or a defense, and I just didn't think they did that this past year. So Brian Mason's got to do a better job, and they've got to get better players. So I think that's going to help by adding Balentine. So those are my thoughts on the 2 new adds. Good, solid depth pieces. I think you're seeing the Colts really attack depth at certain spots and trying to improve their secondary, and I think they've done an outstanding job doing that with what they've added so far. And I don't think they're done, and that leads me to my next topic. And I want to give Destin Adams some credit, because he heard this, and I looked into it, and I verified it. The Colts are certainly interested in adding a linebacker, and one guy they're looking at as kind of like a hybrid player that was drafted very, very high. And, I actually really liked, and he just hasn't lived up to his billing. Isaiah Simmons was drafted by the Cardinals. I think he spent a year with the Giants. That's a guy they're looking at. I think he'd be an interesting chess piece in this defense, because, like, Lou Anarumo's nickname is the Mad Scientist, man. He'll find a way. So that's a guy they're looking at. And then another guy that hasn't lived up to his billing as kind of, I think, maybe a veteran presence at edge, if they don't get Trey Hendrickson, is Cleveland Farrell, who played last year with the Commanders. They're talking to both of these players. They're interested in both of these players, but whether they get them signed remains to be seen. Again, Destin was first on that. And, I think Isaiah Simmons especially is an interesting guy. Because he's such a hybrid. He played safety, he's played linebacker, he can blitz. So he's a niche player. You got to find a way to use him, but if used correctly, I think he could really help a defense. So we shall see what happens with those 2 guys that they're looking into and talking to. I'm not sure what the market is for those players, but both have underachieved and haven't really produced. So I don't expect that they would be big money guys. So I certainly think there's a possibility for one or both of those players to be added to the fold, especially Simmons, considering what our linebacker room looks like right now. I also expect us to attack both of those positions in the draft. So with that said, we move on to Trey Hendrickson. I know you guys have seen the reports and the news that the Bengals are very close to signing both Jamar Chase and also T. Higgins to really high deals. And this is kind of good and bad. The bad part is I think it takes some of the pressure off the Bengals for the 2025 season in terms of what the cap hits would be. And I think they're starting to realize, like, asking for a first-round pick or even a second-round pick for a guy that's, he's played great, and I want him, and I think he's still got years left in him, but he wants like $30 million. He wants a lot of dough. And so they're trying to maximize what they think they can get for him, but the problem is the amount of money he's going to cost for the team that signs him makes the draft pick compensation lower. So what I'm saying is I think there's a chance that they try to sign him, but I don't know how they do it because he wants an extension. It would have to be backloaded. I don't know how they would do that. But they are, the Bengals are now back in contact with him. They've really stayed in contact with him the entire time, obviously keeping in tabs on where, the teams he's talking to. I would say it's 50-50 right now. He returns to Cincinnati. The Colts are still interested, but they're not going to give the Bengals what they want. The Bengals want either right now, or obviously they've come off the first. Now they want a second. Maybe a team's willing to do that, but again, it has to be with the caveat of what the team that's signing him or trading for him is going to have to pay him. And when you're talking about paying a guy that much money, you're not going to want to give up that much draft capital because you're going to be taking on so much money. So that means that the what the Bengals get back is going to be less, which makes them less inclined to trade him. It's all kind of a circle, a puzzle that you have to put together, and it's kind of complicated by the fact that they've got these two really, especially Chase, just a top two receiver that they've got to pay, and then Higgins, who could get paid a ton outside of Cincinnati. But they have the same agent, and it's like it's like either both or none. And so there's so many variables, guys. It's very, it's tough to read tea leaves when there's so many different variables involved and so many different players and just scenarios. But I'm still like, I just do not see the Colts going to a second. I just don't. I think they're willing to part with a third and a player, and I think that's kind of where they're at. And if it doesn't happen, I think they're going to pivot to a guy like Farrell just to have the depth. And I just think he's going to be a cheap 1-year guy. But they have nothing after this year at edge, which is why I think they're going to take an edge, very high in this draft, if not in the first round, or it's going to be in one of the top 3 rounds, I would think. They need a linebacker, and hopefully they can get Simmons in here. They need an edge, and they need a tight end. Those are the 3 positions. Safety, I think they can wait a little longer now. Corner, I think they can wait a little longer now. D tackle, I think, is a need. And then obviously guard. So you've got a lot of places where you need some help on this roster. So the Colts aren't in a hurry to give up a second-round pick. So that's where it's at right now. They're still talking. There's I think the Commanders and a couple other teams are involved. But again, their asking price, they're just not getting what they thought they would get for him. They thought the offers would be higher, and they're just simply not. And it makes sense because the guy's 30 years old, and he wants at least a 2 or 3 year extension on his deal. So Giving up a second really, or a first would be insane because that's just not good business. A back end second, I could see. The Colts are in kind of the middle there. I don't think I would, unless I could make a deal where it was like conducive to, like, if he gets 15 sacks, then we'll give you the second. If he doesn't, we'll give you the third. I could see something like that that's incentive based, but I don't think the Bengals would do that. So that's where we're at, guys. I mean, again, this is great. Like, as far as just attacking needs and putting together a much better roster and a much more competitive roster, this is all I could have asked for. He's doing everything I asked him to do as the GM. I think he's doing exactly what I said he would do with Lou. If you guys have listened to my past podcast, I said Lou loves veteran players because they pick up his defense much faster. They can play faster because they know the game, because they're veterans, right? So what has he gone out and gotten? Nothing but veteran defensive players. So obviously, we have a major need at tight end. I still think there's a chance they go out and sign a veteran guy, whether that's an Ingram or a Goddard or whoever. I don't know. I think that's a need that they have to consider, but I just don't know how much money. The money's going to run out at some point, right? I think they're kind of waiting on this Hendrickson thing to play out a little bit. And, once they know one way or the other, I think you're going to see a significant signing. And that'll let you know that the Hendrickson, trade thing is dead. But until then, I think they're still working towards getting that done, trying to get that done. And, there's dominoes that have to fall, and you can't wait forever on the Chase and Higgins things, but those things seem to be imminent. Once those dominoes fall, I think you're going to see the Hendrickson thing speed up in process, and that will allow the Colts to kind of move forward with their plans at edge and also other positions with the money that they have. So I hope that's a good explanation of what's going on. Again, I like what they're doing on defense. Lou is a guy that values veterans, smart players that can pick up his defense and play fast. And he's gotten those guys. He's getting guys in there that know how to play, that know the game. He's already said he's going to, Ward's going to travel with the team that they're playing's best receiver, which I love. Bradley never did that. And I think that I just love everything about this offseason so far, from the signing of Anarumo to the coaching staff he's put together. I love their DB pass game coordinator, coach. I think Hewitt, I think, is going to be a guy that's really going to be great for our cornerback room. A new voice, a new set of eyes. And he's developed some really great corners and safeties in Baltimore. So I love that hire. And then everything Ballard's done, man. He's gone out and attacked. Secondary was terrible. He had to improve it. He's absolutely done that with 2 new starters and built the depth, and is starting to build the depth at other positions on the roster. So a lot more to be done. It's not over. There's going to be more moves, but I like what they've done so far, and I cannot wait to see what they do in the draft, because I think when you put it all together, I think the Colts are going to have a shot this year, man. I think they're going to have a shot to win the division. Houston has not really done anything. Jacksonville, even though we can never win there, it doesn't scare me, and Tennessee doesn't scare me. So I think the Colts have as good a shot as anybody in the division, especially if AR keeps, and the reports are he's working his ass off down in Florida, and he's focused and locked in. I think they can win the division this year. I truly do. They've got to continue to do what, add pieces to the puzzle and add during the draft and kind of put this thing together. But it's certainly looking like this is going to be the best roster we've had in a while. So I'm feeling pretty confident about that. Again, these games are all played on the field. They haven't got on the grass. Injuries play a role. All that stuff goes into what happens in a football season. We all know this, but I like what they're doing. And at this point, that's all I can comment on. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think. What's your grade for their offseason so far? And by that, I mean not only just the players, but also, the coaching staff they brought in, which I was shocked they were able to get such a solid defensive coaching staff, that they've got some really great coaches on it, along with the coordinator, who I think is going to be, with these players, I think you're going to see a massive upgrade. What would your grade be for their offseason just to this point? I would hope nobody would give them a D+, but maybe a Jags fan or a Titans fan will jump in and give us an F or a D+. But what do you Colt fans think? I'm at a B+, man. I think I like what they've done. The only reason I'm not giving them an A is because they couldn't re-sign Fries. But outside of that, man, so far, B+. I love everything they've done. I love the staff they brought in on defense. I like the veterans that they brought in. I think you're going to see them, add an edge, somewhere, whether it's in free agency or in the draft. And I think you're going to see them probably get some depth pieces in the draft. But so far, man, I'll give them a strong B+. So in the comments, let me know what's your grade for the Colts off season so far. How are you guys feeling? Are you feeling positive? Are you feeling negative? Do you think I'm crazy saying they got a shot next year? Love to hear what your guys' thoughts are. I feel a whole hell of a lot. If you guys remember that, at one point I was so distraught with this team, I was ready to stop doing the podcast, and I'm so glad I didn't, because one, you guys are great, and I love your comments, and you're very supportive. That's the most important thing. But also Chris Ballard. Like, who's Chris Ballard now? Like, somebody's taken over his body or something. It's like a whole nother guy. So I feel good about stuff. I just want to hear how you guys feel. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the weekend. And as news comes, I'm gonna keep doing shows. Maybe doing a bit, if there's nothing breaking in the next few days, maybe I'll do a Q&A and some, throw in some more hilarious Bob Irsay stories. I know some of you guys really like the history of that, and just kind of hearing about, maybe stuff that happened before you were born or whatever. And I'm glad to bring that to you. I always enjoy talking Colts history, something that, I'm passionate about. So hope you guys have, like I said, I hope you have a great weekend, and make sure you leave some comments, share the podcast, bro. Guys, I'm really trying to grow it. And if you dig it, share it to your Colt friends. I'd really appreciate that. So everybody take care. Hopefully, there'll be some good Colt news coming along the way. And again, enjoy your weekend. This has been Culture Uncut with your host, Jason Spears. I am out.